Blessings, everyone. Thanks for joining me on my recent pilgrimage to St. Herman of Alaska Monastery up in Platino, which was founded by Father Seraphim. This also is his resting place. I took a lot of still photos on my pilgrimage and some video clips. I sort of condensed them together and I thought I would narrate it here. So let me share my screen. Okay, so this is on Highway 5 going north. I wasn't taking the video, so I was driving carefully. Highway 5 goes north up to Oregon, or you can take it south down to LA. It was 70 miles an hour, the speed limit on there. So Red Bluff, where I took the exit to head toward Platina, is about, I guess, about 150 miles north of San Francisco, about 3 hours. And then Platina was another 50 miles and about an hour off of 30, off of 5. This is 36, I believe, heading out towards Platina. A beautiful drive. I can see why Father Seraphim was attracted to this place. Um, it's it's naturally beautiful. The the mountains, in California we have mountains. So heading this way towards Platina, I think you have the Siskiyous. So here it was December, so they were snow capped. And behind you here, you're heading towards the mountains, and then towards the north, you have Mount Shasta. This is like 14,000 feet, and then behind us to the east, you have Mount Lassen, and they were all snow capped, very, very beautiful. A lot of oak out there. It started getting more pine as you got into the mountains, but Platina was mainly a lot of oak. I could see. I understand why Father uh, Seraphim was drawn to this area. I found a kind of an interesting quote. Uh, this is from one of the members of Jefferson Airplane, which was this psychedelic rock band from the 60s. And he said San Francisco is 49 square miles surrounded by reality. So the difference was stark, me coming from the Bay Area and then going to Northern California. I mean, the natural beauty and then just a lot less people. So I can imagine in the 1960s when Father traveled up here, there was probably almost nobody. I mean, Red Bluff is still a small town, and there weren't a lot of people out there. I think once you leave Red Bluff, they say like, you got 100 miles to go before you can get gas. So, you know, fill up your tank. It's you're heading out into a remote area, and I mean there are pilgrimages that people do on foot in Christianity. I guess you could walk from Red Bluff to Platina. Like I said, it's about 50 miles. I think you're doing elevation, so you're going up about 2,000 feet. It would be a rough walk. I mean, part of the journey for me was just the drive and getting there. And there are pilgrimage journeys that are part of Christian history. Probably the most famous is in the West is the Santiago de Compostela pilgrimage, which there were many routes in Western Europe heading towards Spain, and that was supposedly where the remains of Saint James the Apostle were. And then, of course, there are many pilgrims going to the Holy Land. You know, at least partly way by foot or by sea or by horse. And in Russia, it's interesting. You have the one of the most famous pilgrimages is the Lavra Road pilgrimage, and that's from Red Square to Holy Trinity Lavra. There's the, excuse my pronunciation, Velkuvetsky procession. And then there's the one that I would like to do. It's a more modern one. Is the Katerinburg procession, which goes from where the Apativ house used to be in Ekaterinburg, and that's where the royal martyrs were murdered, to the mine shaft out quite a ways outside the city where the royal martyrs were first, their bodies were first dumped, and people do that on foot. I think uh, on the anniversary of every year of the royal martyrs murder. So here we're heading up into the mountains, and there have been fires in that area, like a lot of California. So you see some evidence of that, but it's beautiful and it's remote. This is just a view that I took, and I think this was looking eastward towards Mount Lassen. Beautiful. I don't think it reads as majestic as it actually did in real life. I was kind of blown away. I didn't want to come back to civilization, as you know, we say. I didn't feel like coming back to the Bay Area after being up there. I loved it. This is another view, I think, of driving up to Platina. You know, one of Father's books that he didn't really write this. Like, he translated it, as far as I know. The Northern Thebaid, I think that's how you pronounce it. And it was about Russian monks or hermits. Let me put it on pause. From uh, you know, the I guess medieval times. And I read it. I read it a while ago. Um, yeah, wonderful, wonderful, wonderful book. Oh, and published by St. Herman Press, which is the Brotherhood up there. And Father translated this book, so I can see why he was inspired to go to this northern desert in northern California and live a very aesthetical life. It's pretty rustic up there. That's looking. If you look at my cursor, I believe the monastery is up on that hill there. Very beautiful. That's looking up towards the monastery. I think it's up in this area. I can't recall. But it is quite remote. I didn't see homes in that area. I think Platina, the little town, was sort of over the hill, but there's not much there. I don't think there's not even a gas station there. There's very, very little there. That's the road heading up to the monastery, which was a dirt road, gravel road, I should say. It's cool to think that Father Seraphim Rose. I remember in the Father Damascene book, Not of This World, I remember something about when Father Seraphim was first, because they had the printing press, and I still think they had the bookshop at that time in San Francisco, and they were moving things to Platina, which was, it's a hike. And I think at one point he drove up there and it was snowed in, and I think he had a walk up the hill, which is a good walk. It's a few miles. This is the gate when you first get to the monastery. I shouldn't say gate. It's like an archway. It's like the entrance. Um, there's me at the cross. It was cool that day. There's a big temperature change when you go up there from the valley, like say down in Red Bluff, to the monastery. I was wearing my Russian hat. It's like the most Russian hat I have. Here's the entrance way. This, I believe, is, people can correct me if I'm wrong. Oh, I remember what this is. I was very touched by this particular building. Father Seraphim Rose built this little chapel by hand, and it's dedicated to the royal martyrs who are very important to me. Yeah, here we go. This is the interior. I had read about all of these things in Father Damascene's book, but sometimes it doesn't really come together until you're there. And there were all kinds of, this is the iconostasis, excuse me, but behind yeah, here, this is in the chapel area, not behind the iconostasis, but in front of it. And there were various pictures of the royal martyrs. I assume they're from the time of Father Seraphim Rose. And personally, I was very touched. This is probably one of my favorite places at the monastery because the royal martyrs, and I've done a previous video on this, are very important to me. Along with Father Seraphim Rose, they're probably one of the big reasons I'm Orthodox. So there you see Tsar Nicholas, Zarevich Alexei. This is, I think, behind the iconostasis. This um this is just the monastery. That might be the print shop right there. So I think that there are buildings at the monastery, and don't quote me, I'm not an expert. If you visit there, perhaps one of the monks, you can arrange to have a tour. That building, I think, dates from Father Seraphim's time, and also the print shop does as well. And yes, we did get to see inside, and this was interesting because if you read Not of This World, the biography of Father Seraphim Rose, you read about how they had this very laborious task of printing the Orthodox word, their periodical, using these types. I can't imagine doing this, but they all did it by hand. There's the press, which they all did by hand. So, I mean, if you have some of those early copies of the Orthodox Word, they're precious because so much effort went into that publishing. Okay, this is this is very important to me. This is very. I really felt the presence of Father Seraphim. I don't know if I did. I don't honestly. I don't know if I did at the monastery or even at his grave, but at his hermitage, I guess you would call it, or his where he lived. It was very strong. So as we approached the hermitage, there's a bell on a tree. I don't know, several yards away from the hermitage, and the brother that was taking me on the tour, he rang it as he went by, and I was like, oh, that's interesting. And then we went into the hermitage. Later that day, or the next day, I was reading um, the memory of somebody who knew Father Seraphim Rose toward the ends of his life, and he talked about how whenever he would go visit Father, because Father gave him a lot of spiritual direction, he would ring that bell, and that would be like a sign to Father Seraphim, who would be in his hermitage, that somebody's approaching. I thought that was cool, and I thought that the monks continue that tradition. Is actually very, very touching. It kind of hits me even now that they still do that. So there's Father's hermitage. it's still there. It's just a shack, really. Um, Built by him, no insulation. There is there's better pictures online of the interior of Father Seraphim's hermitage if you want to watch them or see them, excuse me. I'm not a great photographer, but I did take a few. He had a wood burning stove in there to keep warm, a very tiny little bed, a little desk, some bookshelves, some icons, very, very small, um, tinier. Well, this shows you that I'm not a very good photographer. Very tiny, smaller than most people's closets. And some of his books, I assume they date from when he was there. I didn't really get a chance to look through them. I took a quick picture. Yeah, an example of my not great photography. I felt the presence of Father Seraphim very, very, very strongly there. I have to say it was a very strong, I probably don't express myself or articulate things very well, but I had a very, very strong spiritual experience there in this tiny little wooden like shack, you could say. And I'm not using that as a pejorative, but that's what it is. And I've been to Rome as a Catholic, and I walked into St. Peter's Basilica. Let me see if I have a picture of that. Okay, here's St. Peter's Basilica. And I'm not saying that a religion should not create a beautiful edifice to honor God. Here in San Francisco, the Russian Orthodox Church outside Russia built a beautiful church that Father Seraphim Rose, saw in his lifetime and was in. It's a beautiful church with beautiful frescoes and beautiful iconostasis and beautiful icons. That's not what I'm saying, but just from my personal experience, I had a greater feeling of consolation and a greater religious experience in that little hermitage than I did here. I have to say, at St. Peter's, I felt nothing. It was cold. In Father's little shack, I felt an incredible presence of holiness and consolation. Back to the video. That is actually the resting place of Father Seraphim Rose. For some reason, I actually thought that the coffin was above ground. One of the monks said, no, he's buried 6 feet under the earth. So he's not right there. I actually thought he was. But again, it's a beautiful place to sit and think about the life of Father Seraphim Rose. They have an icon there. They have icons it's in several places outside and beautiful, actually painted, written icons. There's another one behind there. There's some video. A lot of the trees, a lot of oak trees. The monks keep the place very tidy. And believe me, this time of year it's not easy because there's a lot of leaves. There's some of the beautiful icons, and that is a little shrine where I think that's St. John Maximovich, who of course was very important in the life of Father Seraphim Rose. And he was really the one that helped them get so much helped them so much in terms of just the bookshop and then later the monastery. And then that's the chapel, the new chapel. And as far as I know, that was not in existence during the life of Father Seraphim rose. It was built later. It's very lovely. Some of the shrines, and again the place of repose of Father Seraphim, and the graveyard further up the hill. Me wearing my Russian hat there by the burial site of Father. It's a privilege to be there. Um, there's me, some of the beautiful icons. I want to interject real quick that, yeah, Father Seraphim Rose, his writings are incredible. I mean, they're famous throughout the world. I've always said that Father Seraphim Rose is one of the few figures in Orthodoxy that transcends Orthodoxy itself. And what I mean by that is that people outside of Orthodoxy know who he is. Even outside of Christianity, people know who he is. That's not many people achieve that, and that's primarily through his writings. Now, I originally became aware of him kind of anecdotally. It was kind of an urban legend, and I don't mean this again as a slight against him, but I had heard that there had been a Orthodox monk who had once been a homosexual man in San Francisco, and had a great conversion. I'd heard about this years ago in the 90s, and then finally when I had my conversion and became Roman Catholic, or revert to Roman Catholicism because I'd been baptized as a Roman Catholic, I looked into his life again, and of course found the Damashing book and read it through, you know, just voraciously read it because it was kind of incredible. Because here I am in San Francisco and all the places, because the Not of This World book is thorough. It's a big, thick book, and it every aspect of his life as a child, and his life as a college student, and his life is in San Francisco, and his life as a monk is all detailed. And all of these places that Father Seraphim Rose had gone and been when he was still a layperson, I had been there as well. And many of the books and things that had influenced him in terms of Oriental philosophy and, esoteric beliefs and all of that stuff I had gotten into. So I could relate very intensely with his life, just in terms of his spiritual journey that he had gone on, but also in his personal struggles that he also experienced. Father's grave again, one of the beautiful icons there near the grave. That is the chapel. I shouldn't say chapel, it's a church. It's quite a nice size. It's beautiful. It's beautifully built. It's the idyllic setting to there we go in the bell tower. I did get to go to a liturgy, and they do ring the bells, and it was quite beautiful. That was a little alcove at the church with some, again, more beautiful icons, all hand painted. And this is the interior of the church. And there's a wood burning stove in there. As far as I know, there's no central heat in the buildings. That was an icon. I love the Holy Face icon. This is an icon that was special, according to the monk I was talking to. That was dates from Father Seraphim's time, and it was special to him. And like I said, I love the Holy Face, so it was great to get to see that and take a photograph of that. Uh, the monk that I talked to said that this icon dates from Father Seraphim's time, and it was special to him. I believe that that's Saint Herman of Alaska. Correct me in the comments if I'm wrong. Went back to that icon again. That's the last image. I believe that that's Saint Herman of Alaska. A couple of closing comments. Thanks for going on this journey with me. Oh, here, this is the book that I was mentioning earlier. I encourage you to contact um, the monastery if you want to take a day pilgrimage there, and then certainly if you want to do a night pilgrimage, you definitely have to contact them and make those arrangements. I found the monks very hospitable, very kind, very charitable. I can't say enough about how well they treated me and how friendly and kind they were. And I encourage you to go to their website and order some of the wonderful books, sthermanpress.com. The Father Seraphim wrote or translated. And he's been a big inspiration to me. He's one of the reasons that I became Orthodox, and Orthodoxy kind of saved my life because the Catholic Church, the situation there had just become untenable. I couldn't deal with it anymore. And believe me, I tried for 20 years to make a go of it. And I couldn't. I felt like I felt like the situation in the church was getting worse and worse. And then vis-a-vis my spiritual life was tanking pretty bad. And I had actually decided to go it alone. I do have my icon corner here, and I was just gonna pray and read and kind of just do things on my own. And then every Sunday morning when I got up and I didn't go to church, there was just a hole in my heart here. And I was like, I got to get to a church. And I just was like, hey, Father Seraphim Rose was Russian Orthodox. So that's right when I went to the Russian Orthodox Church outside of Russia. And again, they treated me very well. And it's been a godsend to me. And the life of Father Seraphim Rose continues to be a source of inspiration. I know that he did not talk much specifically about his life, and there's good reasons why he didn't, because they had been, whatever he had done had been forgiven, and he had changed his life completely. I mean, just the move to Platina was the physical evidence of that he actually left the world, behind, and that included his past. And I think what's important about many of the writings of Father Seraphim is that he, I think, went after the root of a lot of these problems that we have in the modern world, whether it be drug addiction, promiscuity, homosexuality, uh, gender identity, pornography. He went to the nihilistic root of these issues, and he focused on that, which I think is is truly important, and I think his great contribution, his writing, but also just his the testimony of his life. So I constantly pray for his intercession, and it's a good idea that I think if you're struggling with anything in this modern world that is so difficult to endure and withstand, ask Father Seraphim his prayers. God bless y'all.